Welcome to day one of SandBox's forklift operator training. Before we get started, let's take a safety minute. Right now, we'll take a little bit of time to discuss the emergency action plan with the class. Regardless of the class size or your location, be sure to take some time and identify all exits and muster points. Also discuss any plans for fire drills, emergencies, or any room-specific details. If we're planning to go into the yard later for the practical training, be sure to explain all of the details and expectations. Also, be sure to discuss what the required PPE is, any safe zones versus working areas, and also any site-specific rules that may need to be known before going out into the yard. Please take the next 60 to 90 seconds to identify and discuss some of these topics. Hopefully by now, everyone is finishing up their safety minute. Now, I want to take a second to introduce Toolbox Talks. Toolbox Talks are one-page documents that are sent out weekly by our safety team to highlight a single aspect of health and safety in the workplace. Now, why do we do Toolbox Talks? We do Toolbox Talks to highlight certain issues, situations, or practices that may be happening in our workplace. Sometimes these Toolbox Talks cover topics that we don't always cover on a day-to-day basis. Now, when do we do Toolbox Talks? As I said earlier, Toolbox Talks are sent out weekly by our safety directors and distributed to the well sites by our field coordinators, or they can be accessed on tablets via a shared drive folder. I will share a QR code here in a second, which you can use to access the Toolbox Talk folder. It is also SandBox's expectations that all Toolbox Talks are to be printed and displayed in the mobile offices during operations. We also encourage our operators to use the Toolbox Talks in their JSA meetings prior to starting their shift. Here you will find the QR code for the shared folder in which the Toolbox Talks are stored. In this folder, you will be able to find all current and past SandBox Toolbox Talks. New Toolbox Talks are sent out weekly on either Tuesday or Wednesday. When you gain access to this folder, you will see that all of the Toolbox Talks are stored with the year and then the month and date in the title. Now, please take some time and pause the video to use the QR code and find the most current Toolbox Talk. Once it has been found, please read it over and discuss as a class. You can pause the video now to find the latest Toolbox Talk and discuss. All right, now that we've had our safety minute and also gone over this week's Toolbox Talk, let's go ahead and jump into the SandBox Forklift Operator Training. Before we start getting into SandBox specifics, I wanted to go a bit into the past and talk about some of the traditional methods for delivering frac sand to a well site. Prior to SandBox, frac sand was delivered to a site by using pneumatic trailers. These types of trailers would offload the frac sand pneumatically or with air through a product line that is located on the bottom of the trailer. The sand would then be stored in things called movers or sand kings, which really what these are storage tanks for sand on site. As you can see here from this picture, this is a mover or a sand king. Once the sand is in the mover, it would then be dropped onto a belt located on the bottom of the mover. This belt would then bring the sand to a T-belt, as shown here in this picture. The T-belt is where all of the movers would dump their sand to eventually be brought via belt to the blender hopper. Now, as you can see here, this is a blender, and here is the hopper of the blender. Well, as you can guess, moving sand in this manner with all of the belts and drops caused for a lot of dust and product degradation of the sand. Some of the other downfalls of this method were demurrage costs. Demurrage costs is when a site would go down for issues, they would have to pay the loaded trucks a fee to wait until they could clear up space in the mover for them to unload. Another downfall was contamination of the product. This would happen if a truck accidentally unloaded into the wrong bin on top of another type of sand. One big downfall was the dusty locations. During delivery or frac operations, you could barely even see in front of you because of all the dust. And another downfall was the long unload times. Typically, it would take 30 minutes to an hour and a half to unload a full pneumatic trailer. Now, the method of delivering sand via pneumatic trailers is still used today for some silo operations and some bottom drop locations. On today's frac sites, dust collectors and covered belts are used to help keep dust down on locations. However, some of the other downfalls still affect this type of delivery. Now, enter SandBox. SandBox started in 2013 and was designed to revolutionize the way that frac sand was delivered to frac locations. SandBox is a fully containerized, integrated, and highly efficient solution that streamlines the transportation, storage, and delivery of proppant or frac sand to well site operations. When SandBox was initially designed, they took a look at specific downfalls in traditional frac sand delivery methods and planned to fix or eliminate them from our operations. Demurrage costs. We don't have any demurrage costs because if frac goes down, we can still offload the box and put the driver on a different operation until that site comes back online. Product contamination won't happen because these are individual units that will be completely unloaded on site and refilled at the loading facility with the correct type of sand. Dusty locations, all sandboxes are gravity fed into the blender hopper. With the gravity design, there is no dust created. Also, we meet and exceed all OSHA standards for silica dust. Long unload times, we guarantee a 3 to 5 minute delivery per box. And lastly, specialized equipment needs for drivers. Well, SandBox supplies all of the specialized equipment that drivers will need. The only specialized equipment that SandBox has for drivers is the chassis and the box. So no longer do you have only specific trucks that can haul frac sand. We are able to put any truck on any SandBox location as long as they hook to our chassis. Our vision is to fundamentally transform the way proppant and other commodities are managed, delivering sustainable and measurable value to all of our customers. Now, SandBox is a Houston-based company and has offices in all major U.S. basins. We also have equipment all over the world. SandBox was a privately held company from 2013 to 2016. In 2016, SandBox was acquired by US Silica. This acquisition now allowed for US Silica and SandBox to offer a mine to wellhead solution for frac sand to all of their customers. Now, I want to back it up a little bit and talk about the growth of SandBox. As stated before, SandBox started in 2013 with one operation in North Dakota. When SandBox started, it was one of the first companies to offer a new approach to frac sand delivery and on-site storage. During this time, we partnered with many different frac companies and E&Ps. From 2013 to 2016, SandBox opened operations in North Dakota, Colorado, South Texas, West Texas, East Texas, West Virginia, Louisiana, Ohio, Utah, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. Since then, SandBox has also partnered with a number of international partners, and we have equipment operating in Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina. SandBox was originally a transportation and logistics company and would typically have the customer perform the on-site operations. We would provide all of the equipment and they would operate it on site. And then we would handle all of the logistics and drivers. This approach changed in late 2015, and we began hiring forklift operators and started offering on-site operations as part of our services. As said before, in 2016, SandBox was acquired by US Silica, which then allowed for US Silica and SandBox to offer frac sand customers a full mine to wellhead solution. US Silica would mine the sand from the ground, put it in SandBox boxes, and SandBox would deliver the boxes and empty the contents into the frac blender hopper. As SandBox grew, other companies began creating other types of box systems to compete with SandBox. As you can see from this picture, these boxes are Arrows Up boxes. They were one of our competitors. In 2020, SandBox acquired Arrows Up, which was one of our biggest competitors at the time. As for current SandBox operations, SandBox has roughly 22 internal active crews working across all of the major basins in the U.S. On average, SandBox delivers between 30 and 50,000 loads internally per month. There are a lot of different types of boxes out there, and most all of them are SandBox boxes. SandBox boxes include SandBox boxes, Halliburton boxes, and AU boxes or Arrows Up boxes. There have been over 6,000 SandBox boxes made, 5,000 Halliburton boxes, and 4,000 Arrows Up boxes that have been manufactured so far. With all of the SandBox equipment that is currently active, we are over 50% of the on-site sand storage and delivery market share. And of course, SandBox's biggest customer is Halliburton. Now, let's talk a little bit about the SandBox on-site operations. On all SandBox locations, SandBox has 2 to 3 SandBox operators that operate our equipment during frac operations. These on-site positions include, but are not limited to, a stand operator, forklift operator, and spotter. We manage all of our on-site inventory and unload all of the contents of each box into the blender hopper. The blender hopper is where all sand goes to be transported to the blender tub to be mixed with all of the other chemicals and water before going down hole. SandBox has specific SOPs or standard operating procedures in place to ensure a safe and efficient job site. Some of these SOPs include, but are not limited to, our dance floor policy, stage sheets, inventory sheets, and our dance floor enter and exit policy. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the SandBox system. SandBoxes are a modular box system that attaches to a specially designed chassis. Each SandBox is designed to hold 43 to 45,000 pounds of sand. They are delivered on site by our drivers, and the boxes are picked up using an 85,000 pound to 100,000 pound forklift. Now, these forklifts have a 55,000 pound lift capacity. Boxes are emptied on location using a gravity-fed stand system that drops the sand into the blender hopper. We will go into more specifics on the system later in this training. All SandBox equipment is specifically designed to deliver sand from a sand facility to a well site as safe and efficient as possible. SandBox holds numerous equipment and process patents for our process. In this training, we will discuss the different types of equipment that is used in our SandBox operations. Before we go into our SandBox forklift operator training, let's talk a little bit about US Silica, our parent company. US Silica was founded in 1894 and is a leading provider of minerals and specialty products used in a variety of industries. The raw materials that US Silica mines are building blocks for our customers' products. US Silica has 28 active mines and production facilities in the US, with over 2,000 employees. US Silica is broken out into two different business segments: the Industrial and Specialty Products, or ISP, and the Oil and Gas Proppants, or ONG. SandBox Logistics is US Silica's innovative and cost-effective way to store and transport frac sand to oil wells. SandBox is part of the Oil and Gas business segment. Now, to go into a little bit more detail about each of the business segments. Industrial and Specialty Products, or ISP, serves a diverse global base of over 10,000 customers with more than 800 products. ISP products are used in building and constructions, for coatings, cements, and countertops, for filtration, for food, beverages, and pharmaceutical, also as fillers and extenders in plastics and rubbers, in glass making, for container glass and solar panels, and also as absorbents for automotive and pet litter. Now, the oil and gas business segment offers proppants to improve flow rate and recovery from oil wells. We have optimal local sands that are extremely durable. We offer extracting particle sizes. We also have non-proppant products for oil wells. The oil and gas business segment is broken down into frac sand mines and also SandBox Logistics. These are the two main components that go into the oil and gas business segment. Now, some other key facts about US Silica. We have a supportive, inclusive, and healthy corporate culture. We offer excellent pay and benefits. Our belief-based safety program garnered our safest year ever in 2022, and we've improved on it even more in 2023. Our core values include respect, integrity, safety, and community. We use these core values to guide in making key business and operational decisions. We support the communities in which we operate, and we are committed to being a leader in sustainability practices. As stated on the previous slide, US Silica has 4 core values that help to guide key decisions every day. These core values are safety, integrity, respect, and community. These are our guiding principles and are taken very seriously here at US Silica. Now, let's take a quick look at each one of these individually to see exactly what they mean and why they are important. Safety. We will ensure the safety of our people and the environment. We will put safety first, always. We will watch after our coworkers and partners. We will return home safely. We will use stop work authority. We will not tolerate unsafe acts. We will not put profits before safety. We will not look the other way. The slogan for this core value is "Nobody gets hurt today." Now, how do we track safety at US Silica and SandBox? We track our safety scores by looking at the company's TRIR and LTR. TRIR stands for Total Recordable Incident Rate. OSHA developed this calculation to gauge a company's safety record compared to its peers. It looks at the number of recordable incidents per 100 full-time workers during a year. The TRIR equation is the number of incidents times 200,000 divided by total number of employee hours worked in a year. The reason that we use 200,000 hours as the number for this equation is that this number represents the number of 100 employees working 40 hours per week for 50 weeks per year. So that's what gives us this 200,000 hours. Now, the LTR, or lost time incident rates, include injuries that require time off. The LTR equation is the number of lost time injuries in the reporting period times 200,000 divided by the total hours worked in the recording period. Integrity. We act with honesty and integrity. We will be honest and transparent. We will lead by example. We will maintain core values under pressure. We will keep confidences and create trust. We will not compromise our core values. We will not break our commitments. We will not sit idly when something is wrong. The slogan for this core value is do the right thing, always. Respect. We treat each other with respect and dignity. We will treat others as we want to be treated. We will actively listen and encourage participation. We will value others' differences and opinions. We will foster a diverse and inclusive environment. We will not belittle others' ideas or perspectives. We will not bully or harass others. We will not undermine fellow employees. The slogan for this core value is everyone belongs. Community. We operate in our communities as good neighbors. We will be good stewards of natural resources. We will be trusted neighbors and citizens. We will respect local cultures and traditions. We will provide support in times of need. We will not create a hazardous environment. We will not take shortcuts. We will not damage our reputation. The slogan for this core value is better together. Now, what exactly does SandBox do? SandBox is a frac sand logistics and field service company. We internally handle all frac sand deliveries to our well sites. We have a dedicated dispatch team that works with our field team to set up and dispatch drivers. We also operate our on-site equipment and manage on-site inventory on all our customers' frac sites. On these locations, we are responsible for operating the forklift, operating the stand or riser, and managing on-site inventory using our SandBox system application, or better known as SBS. SandBox on-site operations. Forklift operations. Forklift operators are responsible for accepting deliveries, moving around on-site inventory, and moving boxes on and off the stand or riser to be emptied. Stand operations. Stand operators are responsible for operating the stand or riser and emptying the contents of boxes. They are also responsible for communicating the volumes and inventory to our customer, frac, and dispatch. All SandBox operators are responsible for managing the inventory and keeping a rolling count of all on-site sand inventory and empty boxes. Frac 101. Just in case you are new to the fracking industry and you do not know the process for fracking, I have attached these QR codes. These videos will describe in detail what goes on during frac operations. We will be going into more detail later in the training on exactly what happens on locations. So if you have general knowledge of what fracking is, feel free to skip these videos. SandBox Equipment Overview. SandBox Box Overview. Sandboxes are metal containers designed to hold 43 to 45,000 pounds of sand and be transported to well sites using our specially designed chassis. The dimensions of these boxes are 8 foot in length by 10 foot in width by 10 foot in height. They are brought to the well sites and picked up off of the chassis by using an 85,000-pound forklift. They are then placed in our on-site inventory to be used later during frac operations. They can be safely stacked too high on location and are secured with stacking cones. All boxes are equipped with 4 stacking cones in all 4 corners on the tops of the box. Always keep in mind, never stack a loaded box on top of an empty box. The top of the box is equipped with an elongated hatch that runs down the center of the box. This hatch is opened up at loading facilities and is where the box is filled. The bottom of the box is equipped with a slide gate. This is a specially designed hatch that marries up with our equipment on site and is then opened up to deliver the sand to the blender hopper. All sandboxes are equipped with ladder inserts on all 4 sides of the box. The ladder is installed on all chassis and is used to access and open the top hatch. As previously stated, all boxes are equipped with 4 stacking cones on the top 4 corners of each box. These stacking cones are installed to prevent slipping when boxes are stacked. Moving stacked boxes with a forklift is strictly prohibited. All boxes are expected to be inspected daily during pre-trip inspections completed on the chassis, and also during any walk-around inspections that are done on site. Now, let's go ahead and head out to the field so that we can put our eyes on some actual boxes, and I can show you a few more details of the boxes.
These boxes that you see here are what we call our SandBoxes. So you're going to see a lot of different types of boxes out in the field, whether it be an Arrows Up box, a Gen 2 box like you see behind me, or a Gen 3 box like you see over here. We do have a Gen 4 style as well that is about 10 inches taller than our standard boxes. However, those are fairly rare and are used only in certain circumstances. So even though these boxes look different on the outside, they all work the same. They're all designed to hold 43 to 45,000 pounds of sand. All of them have a hatch on the top of the box that you open up to fill the box at loading facilities. They also have what's known as a slide gate on the bottom of the box. Now, the slide gate is what you're going to be opening up on locations to drain the box into the blender. Now, one thing to note on all of our boxes is that every box has a specific number that's associated with that box. So make sure that you always are giving that specific number to the loading facility and also writing it on your paperwork. Now in the future videos, we'll go over how the top hatch works and how the slide gate works.
Here we flipped over a box to show you what the underside of the box looks like. Again, first thing I want to point out is our 4 corner castings in all 4 corners. That is where the twist locks are inserted while it's on a chassis, and it secures it during transport. Here you've got your fork pockets, 1 and 2. This is where the forks are inserted so that they can pick up the box on location. The next and most important thing that I want to point out is your slide gate assembly. So there's some key parts on there that, as drivers and operators, you're going to need to check during your daily work. So the first thing is going to be your safety flaps. So you have 2 safety flaps that are on each side of the slide gate. The next thing is your actual slide gate itself. Now the way these slide gates work is they actually slide both ways so that we can open these on the cradle either way that we put it on. Now, while you're putting a box on a chassis, always be sure to check that the slide gate is closed. The way that you're going to check this is this slide gate bar right here always needs to be inserted into the safety channels on the safety flaps. If this bar is not in these inserts, it means that the box is open. Always check your slide gates prior to loading at a loading facility and also when you're actually getting loaded on site. Stay away from the box. You can view these from quite a distance away to see if it's closed. Here we flipped over a box again to show you what the top of the box looks like. And the first thing I'm going to point out is the 4 quarter casting. Each quarter casting is equipped with what's known as a stacking cone. These stacking cones are put on these boxes to prevent any kind of slippage or sliding whenever we stack these on location. Next thing that I want to point out is your handles. These handles are equipped on all 4 sides and are there for whenever you climb your ladder to open up your hatch. Now this hatch right here is what's going to be opened up whenever you're at a sand loading facility in order to load this box full of sand. Again, the way you're going to open these, for the most part, there are a few different designs out there, is you're going to turn that right there, turn that, and you lift it there. Again, the best way to load these is a 3-point process. You're going to want to hit it here, here, and here to get 43 to 45,000 of sand in there.
SandBox loading procedures. As I spoke about in the last video, when I showed the hatch, the most efficient loading procedure is the 3-drop method. This method is performed by moving the truck while loading the box with sand. As you can see here in the diagram on the left of the screen, your first drop will be 37,000 pounds. Then you would pull the truck forward, and your second drop would be 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of sand. Lastly, you would pull the truck up one more time and load 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, totaling 43,000 to 45,000 pounds of sand. Again, depending on the type of sand and the drop speed of the loader, or movements or more drops may be necessary to hit the desired weight. Always remember, before loading, check that the slide gate is closed. The slide gate must always be closed prior to loading. It is the driver's responsibility to check the slide gate prior to loading. If you were loading a box on site, the forklift operator should always check the slide gate as well. It is the responsibility of the person that is loading the box to check that the slide gate is closed prior to loading. SandBox chassis overview. The SandBox chassis is designed to hold a 50,000 pound footprint in the middle section of the chassis. They have a low profile, which allows for an ideal center of gravity while in transport. Now, there are 2 different types of SandBox chassis. The Gen 1 chassis has 2 sections for boxes to be placed. The Gen 1 chassis are designed to hold only one loaded box in the center of the chassis, or 2 empty boxes on the center and the rear of the chassis. Never mix and match loaded and empty boxes if you're carrying 2 boxes on a Gen 1 chassis. Any loaded boxes should always be placed in the center of the chassis, regardless of the generation. Now, the Gen 2 chassis only have one location that boxes can be placed and secured. This is located in the center of the chassis. The way to tell the difference between the Gen 1 chassis and the Gen 2 chassis is that the Gen 1 chassis have a sudden drop from the tongue of the trailer to the center point where the loaded box is placed. As seen here in this picture, this is a Gen 1 chassis. The Gen 2 chassis are more of a sloping design. The Gen 2 chassis are also much lighter than the Gen 1 chassis. All SandBox chassis are equipped with an aluminum ladder. These ladders should always be inspected prior to use to make sure that they are in good and working order. If they are damaged, be sure to contact your supervisor for a replacement and discontinue the use of the damaged ladder. Now, these ladders have a maximum weight of 500 pounds. Do not exceed the maximum weight. All chassis are equipped with 4 twist locks in every box position. The boxes are secured onto the chassis by using these 4 individual twist locks, which lock the box down in place while in transport. Now, keep in mind, all 4 twist locks should always be locked when the trailer is in motion. Whether it's an inch, a mile, or 500 miles, all 4 twist locks should always be locked.
This here is what's known as a twist lock. This is what secures the box on the chassis during transportation. Again, the way it works is with this handle right here. If you pull it forward, it unlocks the box. Pushing it backward will lock the box in place. Again, always make sure you have your locking pin down.
The driver is responsible for completing daily inspections, or DVIRs, of the chassis at the beginning and end of their shift. Since the driver has possession of the trailer, it is their responsibility to ensure that they inspect the chassis daily. Now, let's go ahead and head back out to the field so I can show you what a chassis looks like in person and go over a few important details that you should know about the chassis. This quick walk around should help to show you what to look for if you're performing an audit on a driver's chassis on location.
This is our SandBox chassis. It's designed to hold a 50,000-pound footprint in one specific zone on this box. Again, what this chassis does is it has a little bit lower profile and keeps the center of gravity with this box a little bit lower. So again, some specifics on our trailer or chassis is on our SandBox chassis, you'll see we have an area right here for the ladder. This ladder is to be secured during any kind of transporting or anytime you're driving on the road. Again, right here, you can see this is where we have our serial plate. This is where you'll find the VIN number for this specific chassis, as well as our paperwork box for any chassis-related paperwork that you might need if an accident or anything like that were to occur. Again, right here, we've got our, this is our area where we're going to get up on top of the chassis to access this ladder. Again, in the other videos with the ladder safety, we will show you how to get up on them. Your box is going to sit right here in the center of the chassis. Again, we've got two different types of chassis. This particular one, as we'll see, has two zones for boxes. Again, the chassis with two zones are designed to only hold one loaded box at a time or two empty boxes. So never mix and match, never have a loaded box and an empty box, anything like that. If anything's loaded, let's keep it to one box in the center. Again, these boxes are going to be secured with a twist lock mechanism. If it's in this position, that is whenever it is unlocked. So that is what you're going to do to all four of these locking pins whenever you get to site to unload your box. Again, once your box is put on, to lock it, all you're going to do is push that back, lift this locking mechanism that's here, and it will be locked and secured during transport. So again, this chassis here, we're going to want to make sure that we do our DVIRs and inspections before we bring these out on the road. So again, you'll see right here on our back area, our twist lock. This is what it looks like without a box on it. So again, that's in the unlock position. And right there is going to be your lock position. So again, make sure whenever you're checking your chassis, that you're looking at tire condition, brake condition, things like that, because we have to make sure that our equipment's maintained before we put it out on the road. Also, make sure that we're checking lights, making sure that all of them are secured in place and that also all of them are working. Everything else on this looks good, so here we go.
Rig mats overview. Rig mats are what make up the dance floor on all of our locations. Rig mats are used for all SandBox locations. This is to increase the stability of the ground during our operations. Again, we have an 85,000-pound forklift picking up a 50,000-pound box. So we want to always ensure that the ground is stable enough to hold our forklift and boxes. The number of rig mats needed per job may vary and depends on a few factors. The amount of space that we have available to set up our dance floor, the amount of on-site storage requested, how many boxes we plan on putting in our inventory, and a few other things may play a role in how many rig mats get placed on location. Now, each rig mat weighs about 2,500 pounds and is typically 16 foot long by 8 foot in width and about 8 inches tall. When hauling rig mats, ensure that they are always stacked neatly on a step deck and always strapped down while in motion. Now, our solid timber mats which you can see in these pictures, we can only haul 8 per trailer, while our composite mats, we can usually haul around 35 per step deck. This is because the composite mats are a lot lighter than the timber mats. Now, let's go ahead and head back out to the field so I can show you some rig mats in person.
These here are the mats that we use on location. Now again, here at SandBox, we always mat all of our locations. The reason for that is we have an 85,000 pound forklift picking up a 50,000 pound box. That's a lot of weight for a small area, so we want to make sure that we give them the most stable ground possible. So these particular mats, as you can see, are our solid timber mats. Now these mats here have one piece of wood that goes the full length of the mat, and then we've got about 10 of these that go across and are bolted together, as you can see here. Now these particular mats are 8 foot by 16 foot wide. So whenever you're going to site originally and planning how many mats you need, always think of how big these mats are and how many you're going to need so that we deliver the accurate amount to location and we're not over delivering mats.
Forklift and front end loader overview. Forklifts and front end loaders. SandBox utilizes a specially designed forklift to deliver boxes on site. The forklifts that SandBox uses weigh about 85,000 pounds to 100,000 pounds and have a lift capacity of 55,000 pounds. The forklift operator on site is responsible for the forklift and ensuring the right lift is used for the job. SandBox utilizes front end loaders to lay rig mats on SandBox locations. Forklifts are a vital part of SandBox's operation. We will be going into a lot more detail later in this training about these forklifts and the loaders. Now, let's go ahead and head out to the field again so I can show you what these forklifts and loaders look like in person.
Here at SandBox, we use a few different types of lifts and loaders to perform our operations out in the field. So behind me, I've got a couple different types that we utilize. First one that we're going to talk about is our front end loader here in the middle. So our front end loaders are used during mobs and demobs. These front end loaders are designed to pick up about 8,000 pounds or one mat or one empty box. Never try to pick up a loaded box with a front end loader. Again, these are really only used for lighter pieces of equipment and moving them around, not during our normal day-to-day operations. Now on the sides of me, you'll see I've got a Kalmar and a Taylor. We also use other forklifts like the Hyundai 250Ds and cone cranes in some instances. Now these types of lifts have a lift capacity of about 55,000 pounds. So that means that they can pick up our loaded boxes. Our boxes weigh about 5,000 pounds, and the load that we put in there is anywhere between 43 and 45. So we're within that 55,000 lift capacity. Again, these forklifts weigh about 85,000 pounds, and they don't have that great of visibility whenever they are loaded with a box. So let's make sure that we never get around a forklift moving. If you ever are going to approach a forklift and operate it, make sure that the forks are down on the ground and that it's turned off. You never want to approach a forklift with the forks lifted. And the same goes when parking a forklift. Always park a forklift or loader with the forks all the way on the ground and have the parking brake set.
SandBox stands and risers overview. On locations, SandBox utilizes 2 different types of equipment to unload the sand from the loaded boxes. The first is our SandBox stands, and the second is our AU risers. These are both gravity-fed systems. Both of these systems have 3 stations in which the boxes are placed on top of to empty the contents of the box into the blender hopper. Underneath all of these stations, you will find chutes in which the sand will flow from the box into the blender hopper. Both pieces of equipment have camera systems installed in order to see the boxes and the sand level in the blender hopper at all times. Both of these pieces of equipment are also equipped with scale systems to see the remaining amount of sand that is left in each box. Both of these are also operated from inside of our mobile office using the cameras and a remote. Both of these pieces of equipment are very similar, and for the most part, they are operated the same. However, there are still a few minor changes between the stands and the risers. Let's go ahead and head back out to the field so I can show you a retrofitted AU riser and what it looks like.
This here is a retrofitted riser. It is similar to the SandBox stand. However, there are a few different things in the operation and setup. However, you can learn those in the setup training and the operation training for this particular piece of equipment. This training is just going to be an overview showing you what it does and how it operates. So, just as with the SandBox stand, boxes are placed on the 3 stations. Once a box is placed on these stations, it is then opened up with our slide gate actuators. Once the slide gate is opened up, the sand will drop into these chutes and flow into the blender hopper. Again, we're looking at this unit from where the blender would be. So your blender hopper would sit right here. Now, the couple differences that you'll see with these versus the SandBox stands is how to raise them up during operations. The retrofitted risers use collars that go on each station to lift it to its desired height, whereas the SandBox stand uses a riser that sits flat underneath its surface. Again, both units have outriggers that need to always be put out when in operation. Again, to learn how to install outriggers on both the SandBox stand and the retrofitted riser, be sure to check out the training for that.
SandBox Mobile Offices Overview. On all SandBox locations, mobile offices are placed next to the dance floor for the on-site operator to work inside of. SandBox mobile offices are where the operator that operates the stand or riser is located during frac operation. The stand or riser will also be plugged in via Ethernet cord to the mobile office. The lines for the cameras are also ran into the mobile office as well. All mobile offices are equipped with screens and computers to view the cameras on the stands and risers. The computer screens or iPads that are located in the mobile offices are for the operator to manage the inventory and create stage sheets for future frac stages. On most SandBox locations, the driver will walk over to the mobile office to have the operator sign off that their load has been delivered. Mobile offices are for the operators on site to use during operations and should never be used to store equipment in during mobilizations or demobilizations. Now let's go ahead and head back out to the field to see what a mobile office looks like.
This here is our mobile office. We'll have these set on all of our locations. Our mobile office is used for operators to operate the stand or riser and also operate our remote cradle. This is also where we will do a lot of our paperwork for stage sheets and keep paperwork for boxes that are on location. So if you're a driver arriving to site, you will always want to make sure to come over to the mobile office and knock on the door in order to get your paperwork signed off. If you're an operator or a supervisor coming to location to do an audit or work on site for the day, be sure to always check in at the mobile office so that our operators can go over the JSA for the day with you. Be sure to always sign in on the JSA prior to performing any work on location.
Now, let's go inside the mobile office and look at the camera views that the stand/riser operator can see during operations.
Now we can see each station as well as the pickle forks. This is because we don't have any boxes on the stand currently. If we had boxes on the stand, you would be able to see the boxes right there. This view in the center is where your blender hopper would be. This is how you will manage your level of sand in the blender hopper, by watching this screen. So, just to make sure that our stand is working properly, we'll want to test our remote. Again, we want to make sure that it's on, and we can open and close station 1. So we'll look here, and as we can see, the station's opening. And then we can also close it. Now, you want to do this with all of your stations before you start operations. You always want to make sure that your remote and your stand are working properly.
Generators overview. A generator is a machine that converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. SandBox utilizes generators on location to power certain pieces of equipment during operations. Mainly are SandBox risers, mobile offices, and stands. In some instances, light plants that are provided on location may also be used as a source of power. Trainer talk. During this portion of the training, the trainer can discuss their experience with SandBox and what they think about the time that they have had with SandBox. During this time, the class may ask the trainer questions about SandBox, and the trainer can also share some of their experiences with SandBox and things that they have seen throughout their tenure with SandBox. Since we are not in a classroom, I will go ahead and talk a little bit about myself. My name is Chris Whitting, and I'm the Director of Field Operations for SandBox. I have been with the company since 2011 and have been fortunate enough to help start SandBox in 2013 in North Dakota. During my tenure with SandBox, I have held many positions, starting with a truck driver at the beginning up to my current role as Director of Field Operations. Over the early years of SandBox, I was also able to open all of the regional offices and then eventually turn them over to the regional management teams that we have today. One of my favorite things about working for SandBox is the way that we have completely changed the way that sand is delivered and stored on site. Back when I first started here, pneumatics were pretty much the only way to haul sand. And now with SandBox, we've completely changed the way the frac sand landscape looks. I know that with continued innovation from SandBox, we can continue to revolutionize the frac sand industry. SDS protocol. A safety data sheet, or a SDS, which were formerly known as MSDS, includes information such as the properties of each chemical, the physical, health, and environmental health hazards, protective measures, and safety precautions for handling, storing, and transporting chemical. It provides guidance for each specific chemical on things such as the personal protective equipment needed, first aid procedures, and spill and cleanup procedures. SDS protocols, OSHA standard 1910.1200, HAZCOM, says SDS sheets must be readily available in your work area during your shift. SandBox has SDS manuals in the shop and SDS manuals in the mobile offices. The QR code provided at the top right are the most common SDSs used on our locations. At this time, please use the QR code located at the top right of the screen to access SandBox's SDS folder. Silica dust regulations. OSHA 1910.1053 for dust states that the silica standard establishes a permissible exposure limit, or PEL, of 50 micrograms per cubic meter for an 8-hour time-weighted average, or TWA. The QR code at the top right corner is a link to SandBox's testing results. You can see that we are well below those levels. SandBox is below those levels because the operators work remotely. or inside the forklift or mobile office. So, there is no need for respirators. Based upon results of an independent IH study conducted to determine respirable crystalline silica exposure, if any, to SandBox employees at frac sites, which indicated levels below OSHA's action level, or AL. SandBox hereby suspends its medical monitoring program for employees. This independent monitoring of multiple SandBox worksites reflects that its engineering and administrative controls are effective. SandBox will continue to monitor exposure to respirable crystalline silica to ensure their ongoing healthy workplace. And should conditions change, appropriate action will be taken to resume medical surveillance of SandBox employees. With all that, we still need to practice good housekeeping with forklifts and mobile offices. And we keep N95 dust masks in the mobile offices for operators for dust situations on location, such as gravel, limestone, dirt, or any others that may be found in the working area. What is the dance floor? The dance floor is an area in which the forklift operates on location. This area is always fenced off using cones and chains. This area is off limits to anyone while the forklift is running. Access to this area can only be granted by the forklift operator. Once the lift has been parked with the forks on the ground, the forklift will be shut off with the key taken out, and the forklift operator is on the ground with the key in their possession. This is our dance floor enter and exit policy. We will go into greater detail later in this training about this policy. One thing to note is that SandBox has a zero tolerance policy for any dance floor infractions. A dance floor infraction is any time that anyone enters the dance floor without permission. The forklift training area that we will be utilizing for the practical training portions of this training will have the same rules as a dance floor. The trainer is responsible for ensuring that no one enters the forklift training area without permission. SandBox systems. This is a quick overview of the systems that SandBox utilizes. SandBox mobile app. This is the application used by drivers to be dispatched and manage their loads. SBS, or SandBox system. This program is used by SandBox to handle dispatching, job management, stage management, and site management. All SandBox jobs are run and managed using this system. This is also where job alerts are sent and entered. Job alerts are anytime that there is MPT, backup time, spills, or any other major incidents that need to be sent out. The SandBox mobile app, or SMA, is the system that the drivers use to deliver loads. This information for the loads can be seen in SBS by the operators. SBS is also how we manage our on-site inventory and create stage sheets, which we will go into later in this training. Samsara. This system is our tracking system and is used to track all equipment. In the Samsara system, we are able to see where our equipment is located. Vector. This is our reporting system. We utilize this system to send in all incidents, alerts, and audits. Future trainings will cover these topics in greater detail. Operator expectations. These are a few of the expectations that we have for our SandBox operators. This is a general list for SandBox operator expectations. Expectations may vary based on district and workload. Shift schedules and rotating schedules. SandBox operators work a 2-week on and 1 week off rotating hitches. This means you will work one hitch on days and the next hitch on nights. The 2-week hitch begins on Wednesday at 0600 for day shift and Wednesday at 1800 for night shift. Depending on location of the well site, You may have to report to a specific location prior to your shift to meet up with your crew. Your manager will provide which shift you will start on and the location in which you will report. Hours and shifts may vary based on available workload and manager discretion. Work hours. SandBox operators work 12-hour on-site shifts. In addition to the hours worked on location, there will also be travel time to and from location. For each workday, SandBox attempts to keep hours worked per day under 15. Approval from management is required if any operator is to work over 15 hours in a day. Potential travel and hotels. Depending on the location of the well site, hotels or man camps may be utilized to lower the amount of time for travel. All operators are required to stay in provided housing when well sites are over 1.5 hours away from local SandBox offices. What is your job as the forklift operator? The job of the forklift operator is to operate the forklift on location during all operations. Also to manage inventory on pad and ensure that everyone is aware of the current inventory and layout. Manage the dance floor and ensure safe operations are always followed. Additionally, all duties that may be needed to successfully operate at any SandBox location or facility. Examples of SandBox locations or facilities could include but are not limited to well sites, lease roads, staging pads, customer locations, and SandBox yards. Again, depending on the district in which you are working and the available workload, expectations may vary. This now concludes the first hour for day 1 of the SandBox Forklift Operator Training. Please find the QR code located in your book for the next section's training.